As a buyer asked me last month whether he should disavow 11 domains. A tool had colored those rows red on his dashboard, and he wanted a second opinion before he uploaded the file. He asked him which of the 11 he had opened in a browser. None of them. That is the normal version of this decision, and it is why I think most disavow files are a mistake. Junk links are real. The problem is what you are actually doing when you upload one. I buy placements and I sell them. I vet domains with a paid backlinks provider that costs about 2 cents a lookup, and I have run that check on sellers, on buyers, and on my own properties. One of my own domains came back at 48% spam while it sat indexed, carried no penalty of any kind, and was selling do follow placements at $250 each. We went through how that number gets built in another one of these, so I am not going to redo it. The short version is that it is a vendor's model of the neighborhood around you, and what it earns you is a reason to go and look. This video is about what you do next, which is a separate decision, and a much worse one. What the file actually is. A disavow file is a text file. One domain or one URL per line, uploaded against a property in Search Console. It is an instruction. You are telling a search engine to discount specific links pointing at your site, and it takes that instruction at face value. Nobody reviews your reasoning. Nothing comes back. Sit with that for a second, because almost every other lever in this job is a request. You ask for indexing, you ask for reconsideration, you ask a seller for a placement. This one is a command, and the only judgment applied to it anywhere in the chain is yours. The undo button that is not one in, you can delete a line and upload the new versions. People take that to mean the whole thing is reversible. Taking a domain back out of the file does not restore whatever that link was doing for you. It makes the link eligible again. Then the page has to get recrawled and reassessed, and whatever it was carrying has to find its way back through. Nobody can tell you how long that takes. I have never seen a figure from anyone. I believe weeks is the usual guess, and a guess is exactly what it is. So, the honest description of a disavow is a decision you can undo on paper and cannot undo in practice on any timeline you would accept. The number will not move. One more thing about that dashboard, since it is usually what starts all this. A disavow file changes nothing about the link itself. The page stays up, the anchor stays exactly where it was, and the link is still sitting on the open web for anyone to crawl. So the vendor whose score frightened you carries on counting it. Pull the same report next month and you get the same percentage, or a worse one, because 2 more scrapers found you in the meantime. You uploaded the file to make a feeling go away, and the feeling is still on the screen. I have watched people respond to that by building a second, larger file. What a bad one looks like from the inside. This is the part that makes it dangerous instead of merely wasteful. You do not get a notification. Nothing confirms the file was processed, nothing lists which links were affected, and no readout ever appears telling you what changed. The effect does not arrive as a step either. It lands as pages get recrawled, so it smears itself across weeks, a step you could attribute. Something drops on Tuesday, you look at what you shipped on Monday, you have a candidate. A smear gives you nothing to point at. By the time the shape of it is visible, you have published 4 articles. A core update has landed, and a competitor has done something you did not see. So the decline gets attributed to one of those. The disavow never enters the conversation because it left no trace and because you had already filed it under housekeeping. You have watched somebody spend a quarter diagnosing a slide with the cause sitting in a text file they uploaded and forgot about. The judgment you are not qualified to make. Here is the core of it, and it has nothing to do with whether search engines ignore bad links. To disavow a domain correctly, you would need to know that the link is currently doing you harm, or at the very least doing you no good. You do not know that. Neither does the vendor whose score you are acting on. What the tool gives you is a probability that a domain resembles the sort of domain that tends to be junk. That is a genuine signal, and I pay for it every month. What you need is whether that specific link on that specific page pointing at that specific page of yours is carrying anything at all. No vendor answers that. None of them claim to. The two questions get collapsed because they arrive in the same interface, 3 pixels apart. And there is a second gap sitting underneath the first. The model is trained on how a linking site behaves outbound. Thin pages, enormous outbound counts, exact match anchors, the usual sediment. A domain can score badly on every one of those and still be sending you the single link a real editor placed because your page was useful to their readers. That link sits in the same red row as a scraper mirror. You cannot see the difference from a dashboard. You can see it in about 90 seconds by opening the page and reading the paragraph the link is in. The asymmetry. Now price the bet. If you are right and those links were junk, Google's stated position for years has been that it already discounts most of that without being asked. So being right buys you very little. You have done a job by hand that was mostly done for you. If you are wrong, you have removed links you either paid for or earned, and you get them back on a schedule nobody will commit to in writing. Small upside, real downside, and no instrument anywhere that measures either one. It would not take that trade on a proxy line, and I do not take it on a link profile. There is also a cost people forget to count. Building the file properly means opening every domain that goes into it. If you actually do that, you generally find you no longer want to upload it, which tells you something about who ends up uploading them, where the file genuinely belongs. Two situations, and they are narrower than the popularity of the tool suggests. The first is a manual action you have actually received, not feared, received as a message in Search Console naming unnatural links to your site. Now you have a specific claim from the search engine, a defined scope, and a human reviewer on the other end who will read what you did. That is the case the tool was built for and it works. The second is a negative campaign you can document. Dated evidence, thousands of referring domains appearing inside a window you can point at, a ramp you can put on a chart, and a clean account of why none of them are yours. Even there, removal comes first. Email the hosts, ask for the link to come down, keep the replies. The file is what you are left holding after the removals fail, and search engines have said as much for over a decade. I will grant a third. You bought links at scale, you still have the list, and you are cleaning up after yourself. You know precisely what goes in the file because you paid the invoices. That one I have covered elsewhere. Where it does not belong, a spam score on a dashboard. That is a screen telling you where to spend your attention, and the attention is the work. A domain you do not recognize. Not recognizing a domain is the normal condition of owning a website. You did not ask for most of what points at you. Scrapers, aggregators, feed republishers, some directory that copied another directory in 2017. None of it is evidence of anything except time passing and general uneasiness about a profile you inherited. Buying a site and immediately disavowing what came with it is the most expensive version of this mistake, because the link profile is a large part of what you just paid for. The thing I will argue about, uploading a disavow file because a tool colored some rows red, is a decision to delete assets you have never once valued. You would not delete 200 pages of your own site because a plugin flagged them without opening a single one to see what it was. This is the same act. The only difference is that the pages sit on somebody else's server, so you never watch the deletion happen. People do the second one casually and would never do the first. I think that is entirely because a disavow file feels like tidying up instead of throwing things away. The mistake I nearly made. I got about an hour into building one of these on that 48% domains. List open, file started, and a working theory that somebody had aimed a link farm at me. Then I opened the domains. 50 of them. 20 minutes of clicking, and they were scraper mirrors and directory clones and sites republishing an RSS feed with the links left intact. Nothing in there was worth an instruction to Google. Here is the limit, and it is a real one. I cannot prove that disavowing would have hurt me, because I did not do it. There is no counterfactual sitting on my desk, and there never will be. Nobody who did upload one has a counterfactual either. That is not a defense of my position. It is a description of why this practice never gets tested by anyone. The two rules I would keep if I ever do build one, and I have not yet, these are what I would hold myself to. Never use the domain prefix on anything I have not reviewed by hand. A domain line removes every link from that host, including any link it might send me in future. A URL line removes one. The tool nudges you toward the domain form because it looks tidier, and tidier is precisely the wrong instinct here. And every line gets a reason written next to it in my own copy with the date. If I cannot write one sentence explaining why that particular link is hurting me, the line comes out. That second rule on its own would empty most of the disavow files I have seen. What to do with the anxiety? Instead, open the domains. 50 is 20 minutes, and it converts a feeling into a list you can argue with. Check your own outbound surface while you are in there, because an open comment field or a followable profile page is very often what invited the neighborhood in. I went through that audit separately. Then write the number down with the date and leave it alone for a month. The tool will still be there. It has been there since 2012 and it is going nowhere, and the file you do not upload today costs you nothing at all. Everything I have worked out from both sides of these deals is at theseodest.com. Subscribe for more on link building,